One of many industries taking a hit from the coronavirus crisis is the travel industry. So there is no better reporter to turn to than our own Kris Van Cleave. He is CBS News' transportation correspondent. Good morning to you, Kris.
Good morning.
Overnight, we saw these incredible photos of lines, people packed into airports in Chicago. There were some in Texas. These are the kind of crowds we're supposed to be avoiding. What is behind this? Why is this happening?
This was at the customs area at least two airports, Chicago and Dallas. And this, I think, came from the rush of people coming back from Europe. You know, the new travel restrictions have gone into effect there. The UK restrictions are going to go into effect Monday night. And some of this had to do, we're hearing, with a new form a new health form that people have to fill out that was rushed into use and didn't necessarily get on the airplanes that you normally would fill out the form as you're inbound. That didn't happen. Plus, you have the health screenings, which is basically a temperature check, but that adds about a minute a person. So between the form that no one knew about, that they got handed at some point, and this temperature check, it caused substantial backups. It raises questions about the staffing and what was Customs and Border Protection prepared for the number of people that are going to be impacted when you put in a travel restriction to most of Europe.
And when it comes to those travel restrictions, the president from the podium at the White House yesterday said they were looking at domestic travel restrictions. What are they looking at?
You know, I think right now it's probably a case-by-case situation. This has escalated very quickly. On Thursday, the president was asked about domestic travel restrictions, and he said, hasn't been something we talked about, but wouldn't rule it out, sort of referencing hotspots like New Rochelle and Seattle. Friday, the Treasury Secretary said he'd fly to Los Angeles if he could, and that it's safe to travel domestically. Saturday, the president said he wouldn't travel domestically if he didn't have to, and now they're talking about travel restrictions. So would it be something that probably gets phased in? Yes. Is it possible as this goes on and there are more outbreaks, if that happens, that you could see sort of a lockdown? I think it's possible. I don't think we're there yet. I think they're still trying to figure out what is an appropriate response.
And this matters for the financial health of the travel industry, which has a trickle-down effect on whether people even keep their jobs. I mean, your reporting this week had such incredible statements from the CEOs of some of these firms. British Airways CEO said this is a crisis of global proportions like no one we have known. This is after going through 9/11.
Every single airline executive I have talked to has said this appears to be worse than the impact that 9/11 had on their business. You are seeing airlines with more cancellations than bookings for the next several weeks. That's money going out the door, not coming in. It's just not a sustainable business model. You've Delta talking about parking 40%, cutting 40% of their capacity, parking 300 planes. Americans cut 75% of its international flying. They announced that overnight, parking all of their wide-body airplanes, nearly all of them. This is an unprecedented challenge for the airline industry, and it makes the business model likely unsustainable.
And you had Bank of America's CEO said if they need help, give it to them. Larry Kudlow said they're talking about it. What is it that the airlines are asking for? Is this like a bailout like we saw of the auto industry, or is this something different?
You know, it has a lot of the same feel as we saw with the auto industry in 2008, where things just keep getting worse. And I think what the conversation was on Monday of last week and what it was by Friday is evolving. And if domestic flight restrictions go into place, that conversation is going to continue to change. It's hard to see that there's not going to be some kind of a bailout if you want to see the number of airlines we have today in a year. And
that's just a difference of whether the government takes an ownership stake and then those companies repay it, or whether that's a loan guarantee or some kind of help with, you know.
And I think at this point, that conversation is evolving and continuing to go on, but the airlines are going to need help.
Why are subways still open?
So cities view mass transit as critical, as an essential service, because it links people to jobs and services. And if you were to cut it off, you also tend to impact certain segments of your population, lower income folks, working class people who maybe don't have other options to get around. So the belief is that it's important to keep that running. We've seen ridership numbers come down. So in some ways, fewer people riding makes it easier to spread out, but they don't want to shut it down if they don't have to.
Kris Van Cleave, you will be busy, as will all of us. Thank you very much for your time. We'll be right back.